Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Bot Brack. I'm Edward Box, and today I'm gonna be looking at my top 10 films by the film director John Woo. But just before I start that, this is the second video I've issued in this series. So the first one I mentioned a few filmmakers I liked that I, would do a top 10 by if I could kind of get the kind of 10 films that I kind of think enough of. And I thought of a few others, and others like William Friedkin, French Connection, Exorcist, Sorcerer, then you got The Brink's Job, then Cruising. There's four like really obviously great films and interesting films within there, and I really like Killer Joe. Not seen it for years, but To Live and Die in LA, so I could have got kind of six there. But his other films just aren't. Bug's quite cool, maybe that's stretched to seven, but there's just the other ones. There's just not enough interest there to go like his top 10 William Friedkin films that I really like and maybe you'd want to see. David Lean's another one. Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, incredible films. His two Dickens adaptations and Brief Encounter, that's five. Zhivago and Ryan's Daughter, although syrupy, certainly too long. Ryan's Daughter is still well worth seeing. That's kind of seven films, but I've never been sort of drawn to watching the other ones like The Sound Barrier or Summer Madness and so on. So a really key filmmaker. Sidney Pollack, more of a sort of good craftsman, but obviously, They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Great acting in that. Jeremiah Johnson, Way We Were, romantic film I really like. 3 Days of the Condor. I used to really like Tootsie when I was younger, actually. Absence of Malice is good. A really solid craftsman, but just not quite enough there for me to go, let's do a 10. Robert Aldridge, actually could probably stretch to 10 with an Aldridge. You've got Kiss Me Deadly, The Big Knife, Attack. Attack's a great war film. I'm just looking on internet here. Flight of the Phoenix, love that film. The Dirty Dozen. Then, obviously, What Happened to Baby Jane. Ulzana's Raid's good. Too Late the Hero, really good mission war film, worth checking out with Michael Caine and Cliff Robertson. Longest Yard, great sports film. When I do sort of sports top 10, I'll probably put in Hustle. So we could do one there, maybe. And then John Schlesinger as well. Obviously Billy Liar, Kind of Loving, two social realist films, really good. Darling as well. Then Far From the Madding Crowd. Midnight Cowboy, real hot streak there in the 60s. And then the excellent Marathon Man. Sunday Bloody Sunday's good. I didn't quite like Yanks, but then he kind of tails off in the 80s just after that. Actually, I've got his films up here as one I missed. Day of the Locust. It's close, but just not enough. But a good filmmaker. Arthur Penn as well. Night Moves, Missouri Breaks, two kind of forgotten films that their reputation's kind of gone up since they weren't well received at the time, I should say. But there were two films really worth checking out from the 70s. And of course, Bonnie and Clyde, I love. And then The Chase, which, a film I enjoy. So some really good work by the directors, but just not something I could quite put 10 together with. So I've probably covered in these first two ones the ones that are missing this particular cut. Okay, so John Woo, the Mozart of Mayhem, and he is renowned in Hong Kong for his heroic bloodshed films, his action films. So Woo was hugely influential in the 90s. His Hong Kong films influenced a lot of two-handed gunplay and Mexican standoffs. You can see with Robert Rodriguez, Tarantino. There's other directors like Ringo Lam and Sue Hark were popular as well. John Woo went to Hollywood with mixed results, which we'll kind of come to. And they went back to Hong Kong. And made one really good film I've seen. I will confess I've not seen these films for a long time. I was obsessed with these in the 90s when they came out, and sort of since that time, so I'm kind of going off trace memory. So just talk a bit about some of his films that didn't make the cut. Obviously his Hollywood films, Wind Talkers, I just could never really connected with that. Broken Arrow, You know, we all wanted to like it. We're kind of excited. But John Travolta's hammy. There's a couple of good scenes. The opening scene where the boxing's really cool, but it just doesn't have the woo moments and stylistic elements that we expect. I think his film before, A Hard Target, the studios felt that some of his woo-esque moments didn't work in that, and I think that's really more to do with the Van Damme aspect of it, but we'll actually come to that. And then Mission Impossible 2, I mean, this just didn't work. This is actually I will just tell you, I mean, this is his most successful film. $546 million in 2000, so it's probably, be talking about $1 million gross or something like that, $1 billion, sorry, or certainly $900,000 now. So this is easily the most viewed Mission Impossible film, but just Tom Cruise with long hair with all the woo visuals just didn't work. It had the sentimental bits of Tandy Newton, I just didn't give a fuck. And the Brian De Palma Mission Impossible used the Brian De Palma style in a really good way. It worked, and I think they thought, well, we can use a director with a signature style for each film. But when they did the MI2, although it was a big hit, I think they realised this doesn't work. And then when J.J. Abrams came in, it was more about directing within the Mission Impossible framework and going a bit grittier. And then it kind of started to find its groove again with the fifth one, and then the sixth one's a bit of a modern action masterpiece for me. We need to do top 10 action films. So those were some of the ones that didn't make the cut. So my number 10 choice is his caper film from 91, Once a Thief. So this kind of comes after his kind of initial classic Hong Kong period, Better Tomorrow 2, Bullet in the Head, The Killer. It's like a caper film. There's a kind of and it's got a kind of a triangle, a kind of love triangle plot in it. Chow Yun-fat's good fun. It's a little light. There's a really cool bit where a guy's got two broken legs. I think it's Chow Yun-fat, and he kind of it's fake, and he pops out of them, and then there's gunplay or something like that. It's not great, but it's in that era before he goes to Hollywood. So my number 9 choice is A Better Tomorrow 2. So this has the ridiculous plot where Chow Yun-fat has like a twin brother, because spoiler alert, Chow Yun-fat dies at the end of Better Tomorrow 1986. That's the original two-handed gunplay, heroic bloodshed, Chow Yun-fat sunglasses and toothpick film. Chow Yun-fat's like the great Hong Kong action star, kind of like a sort of Hong Kong Robert Mitchum type of figure. As a way I would describe him. So he actually fell out with Sue Hark on this in the edit. They both did an edit, and then Wu didn't work with Hark again after this. So Sue Hark acted as producer. So I've got to be honest, don't remember as much about this, but I just remember it not being as good as Better Tomorrow. But again, it's in that. Sorry, I've just hit my computer desk. It's in that cycle. Okay, so my number 8 choice. People will probably be shocked by this, but I'm going for Hard Target. So when I went to the pitch to see this was the first John Woo film I saw. Hardboiled, The Killer. I hadn't caught The Killer at this point, and 92 Hardboiled came out, but we kind of got it in the UK 93. So this, what lets it down is Van Damme, being Van Damme. It's got the usual thing. It explains away his kind of accent, that he's kind of French New Orleans. And the Hollywood, the American audience didn't get his kind of slow-mo bits. So when you see Van Damme all in slow-mo, like a kind of Wrangler advert, it just kind of doesn't work in the bits with the doves and stuff. But there is bits in this film which work really well. There's a great bit where the guy is being chased initially, the African American character, by Arnold Vosloo's team through the streets of New Orleans, and when he gets caught, you just see the despair on his face, and there's this great bit where he just kind of steadies himself stoically, and Wu just kind of recessed cuts going up his face into the freeze frame, and it works beautifully for me. There's also another bit where there's kind of the guy leaving, I forget what his name is, but the character, but he's in his car, and Arnold Vosloo's character, I think that's how you pronounce his name, goes, "You were leaving without saying goodbye to me." He's got Pick. I think Vosloo's great in this. Less so in The Mummy, but then he came into the TV show 24. He played Marwan, my favourite 24 villain ever. But anyway, he actually shoots the guy with a shot sawn off, I think. And you see the blood explode and the windscreen shatter in slow-mo. And you can see the influence of Sam Peckinpah in this moment. Brilliant. So there's some really cool gunplay at the end. And there's some cool action sequences. And the film was popular enough. I'm just looking at the gross of this. It grossed $75 million on a $20 million budget. It did enough for Woo to get another film, which is Broken Arrow, which isn't that great. Okay, again, my number 7 choice, again, this would shock people, but I really like the plot of this. I think Uma Thurman's poor. I don't think the chemistry is good between her and Ben Affleck, but his paycheck. I like Ben Affleck as an actor. This kind of gets forgotten about. I kind of forgotten about it myself. It's weird. Uma Thurman's, great in Tarantino, but just doesn't happen in other films. So this wasn't a flop. $60 million budget, $170 million gross. It's probably, when it's gone to DVD, rental TV, it's probably made its money back. But I just like the way that he's left clues for himself and has to remember things, and the payoff when it comes together is actually quite satisfying. I think it's quite interesting. This was kind of, if this had been a hit, it would have been like his kind of Bourne type thing, I think. And you can see sort of like a film like Inception, that Philip K. Dick influence, just that idea of memory and him in kind of piecing it together. There's a little bit Hitchcockian, there's some elements in it. I think the chases are a bit lame, although there's a fun motorcycle chase, but I just think the plotting's quite cool. My number 6 choice is the aforementioned Better Tomorrow. So this is the original Heroic Bloodshed. Basically, Woo had been making films in Hong Kong, got burnout, had a break, and he came back and did this, exploded, became a huge hit. And this is where he started to get his international reputation. Guys like Scorsese eventually would watch his films, and like I say, he would get his nickname the Mozart of Mayhem. 200 gunplay, slow-mo, sustained action takes. When you look at films now, things like John Wick, the John Wick series, Hardcore Henry, Nobody, they have all this crazy action, and it's easier to do it with the lightweight cameras, with the digital cuts and so on. John Woo was doing all this in very tight budgets, and he was doing it with limited camera setups. The amount of coverage they could use, because they don't have the money in the Hong Kong film. So real kind of top, edge of the seat, fly by the seat of your pants filmmaking. So my number 5 choice is probably his best American film, and that's Face Off. Don't love this as much as it did when it came out, but when it came out, it was like, right, Woo's eventually been allowed to make a batshit crazy action film with all the Woo things we come to like. I mean, it grossed $80 million budget, a hefty chunk at the time, $245 million gross. So at the time, Travolta and Nicolas Cage, Travolta actually gets top billing, were big stars, and Cage was beginning his run initially as a big action star. He did The Rock, he did this in Con Air in the same year, like 97 is the year of Cage. Then he did Gone in 60 Seconds, and after that it kind of tailed off with a load of shite. But he made some cool stuff, not Gone in 60 Seconds, that's shite. Travolta's kind of hammy, but they have a lot of fun. Cage is kind of batshit bonkers at the start. You've got the doves, you've got the religious symbolism. I like Alessandro Nivola and this Joan Allen. Gina Gershon's cool as that great Somewhere Over the Rainbow bit where there's a big shootout. Is it Nick Cassavetes is in this as well? I'm guessing he's related to John, could be wrong. The speedboat chase at the end, you can tell it's stunt doubles. But it's some crazy stuff in this. It's cited as Woo's best Hollywood film. I don't think it's perfect. I think at the time I was probably like, oh, this is top, but it is daft. It showed, if he was given that freedom, that he could make a hit film in his style. My number 4 choice, I'm going for Red Cliff. So this is his Hong Kong comeback film. Sorry, I've just gone off my page. So basically, this paycheck, it does all right, but it's interesting that he leaves Hollywood about the same time as Verhoeven. So Verhoeven does Hollow Man in 2000. And that's kind of, it's a hit and not a hit. And kind of Paycheck's the same. And both these guys, they're at a stage where they've kind of tried to kind of fit their ideas and do what they want to do within the Hollywood system with varying degrees of success. And then, it's time to go. It's weird if Woo could have got, someone like Wind Talkers had been better. And he could have got his stylistic things into a kind of historical epic. But it just didn't work. Red Cliff's actually part 1 and 2. There's 2 parts to it, and there was an abridged version that we went out to, US, British, and European other audiences around the world. But it's great, great period detail. Bringing in the kind of Kurosawa influence, I suppose. Obviously, Tony Leung's in this, one of his key, collaborators. And yeah, it's got big scale action. It's got some beautiful action sequences. You think of someone like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Someone like what's the name, Ang Lee, another Asian filmmaker. Kind of, that's the kind of film maybe if we had made something like that. And Ang Lee's had a better Hollywood career. Hasn't always worked, but so Red Cliff. Check this out. It's a great historical epic. Then we come to like the top 3. These are, you could pick any one of these films. These are the films that really do cement his reputation and are his reputation defining films as a great filmmaker. So number 3 choice is Bullet in the Head. This is his Deer Hunt Vietnam type film. Great action sequences, great emotional storytelling, quite epic. This got Tony Leung in it. Again, it's 136 minutes long. So it has all the kind of visuals of the heroic bloodshed, but it's tied in with this Vietnam story. It's kind of like his Deer Hunter. It's superb, and it's kind of more serious than his other films. But my number 2 choice, just to pip in it, is The Killer. So this is the film that was his international breakout. This was the film that went to art house cinemas in the UK, got reviewed in things like Empire magazine. I forget when it got its UK release. I think it was more like 1990. This is introduced us to Chow Yun-fat, really. Obviously, Chow Yun-fat had done Better Tomorrow's 1 and 2. He teams up with Danny Lee in this. What's interesting about this is it brings in his other film influences, and particularly Magnificent Obsession. So what's interesting about this is Douglas Sirk, the Hollywood filmmaker, made a film called Magnificent Obsession. Rock Hudson wants to pay for, I think it's Jane Weinman's, she gets blinded. I forget how he feels he's responsible for that. He falls in love with her and wants to kind of make it right. Douglas Sirk was what Scorsese calls a Hollywood smuggler. He smuggled in subversive ideas in Hollywood films. And that was something really Woo and the aforementioned Verhoeven kind of attempted to do with, varying success. But it's got a crazy shoot at the end bit, and the child, he's Mickey Mouse. Chow Yun-fat ends up getting blinded. Crazy gunplay. Basically, Chow Yun-fat plays an assassin, and Danny Lee's a cop, and they kind of team up. Quite a common plot point. Where people in Hollywood films, Hollywood kind of copied, where people from either side of the law, can sometimes end up teaming up. And again, this kind of has its origins in this film. But a classic of Hong Kong action cinema, and really, really influential film. Going back for the top 10, Once a Thief, Better Tomorrow 2, Hard Target, Paycheck, A Better Tomorrow, Face Off, Red Cliff, Bullet in the Head, and The Killer. Like I say, I must confess, long time I need to watch these films again, but I just wanted to go off trace memory, really. My number 1 film, this is the film where, after seeing like Hard Target, we were able to go back when this film kind of got released, and it's batshit brilliant. It's Hard Boiled. This is his crazy cop film from '92. This has got a staggering 2-minute and 42-second take. I actually watched a feature with Edgar Wright recently, and he picked this as one of his key influences. And he pointed out that what happens is they have a shootout in the hospital, they get in the lift and go to another floor. What actually happens, it all happens on the same set. they have the shootout, they get in the lift, then appear what you think is the next floor. But it's actually, they've actually cleaned the set, and you can actually see where they've reset it. While they're in the lift, it must be in the space of 30 seconds to a minute, and then the mayhem carries on. There's amazing sustained takes in this. It's quite extraordinary how they do it, but I think the key thing is, as well, is the health and safety in the Hong Kong films is not like Hollywood, and that they're able to set explosions off and do crazy shit while the actors are kind of in shot, in frame. And that's why Wu was able to do what he does. But often they're only working with like 3 cameras. You know, they don't have, you know, you get someone like Michael Bay, a director I really don't like apart from The Rock. You know, he'll have explosions and put 14 cameras on them. Yeah, Chow Fat is, you know, great in this, really funny. And he's got Tony Leung in it as well, and a really good, you know, kind of psychic. The image on the poster is Chow Fat with a baby. So in the hospital, he ends up rescuing a baby. I mean, this was copied Fast and the Furious 8. There's a bit with a baby on the plane, you know, and that all comes from this. Yeah, like, cause if you actually watch the dub version, there's a bit where the baby pisses on Young Fat. Young Fat is on fire. He's got the baby in his hand, the baby pisses, but in the dub version he goes, "Hey kid, your piss sure put out my fire." I forget what the you know, the subtitle version is. It's just outrageous. I mean, it says here many critics and film scholars describe his actions as among the best ever filmed. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, when you look at things, like I say, you know, I like John Wick and things like that, but it's just not the same for me. You know, what's the other film? The Charlize Theron one, Atomic Blonde. You know, there's a crazy fight scene in that in one take, but you know there's digital cuts. You know there's the technology there that it's easier to do things. You know, when filmmakers were doing this shit, it wasn't fucking easy. And Wu just, yeah. I think just thinking Hollywood, he couldn't do totally what he could do because the health and safety. And those, you know, the stunt doubles in Face Off, you know, you can kind of see, you know, he probably used the Bloody Stars, you know, in Hong Kong. So anyway, that's my number 1 John Woo film. It's one of the all-time great action films. Check it out. And I'll see you again for the next top 10. Thank you very much.